I'm so tired of the lamestream media. It's about time we get down to the real news. Get involved, get loud, and think on the brink. Well, when you hear the term Tea Party, you sort of conjure up, different thoughts, different ideas. And, of course, it all comes back to our origins and our history of the Boston Tea Party, naturally. It's something that's been branded in our country and with all of us. But, there's a lot of things happening with the Tea Party. Obviously, the Tea Party impacted the 2010 election in a big way. We've talked about that with you on radio and television here. Well, I'm so honored and pleased to have with me Jenny Beth Martin. And Jenny Beth Martin is the co-founder and national organizer of the Tea Party Patriots, which you hear a great deal about. And it's good to have you here and meet you.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
I'm pleased to have you here and get your voice heard with our folks and just get your message out there. So I just think it's a message people need to hear, Jenny Beth. So should we call you Jenny Beth?
Yes.
Okay.
Both names.
All right. So you're one of the co-founders of this, and this was back in
2009. Rick Stantelli had a rant in 2009, and a lot of us responded to it on Twitter. The day after his rant, we had a conference call, and there were about 22 people on that call. We decided on that call to have tea parties because he called for us to have a tea party like our founding fathers. So a week later, we had 48 tea parties with 35,000 people around the country.
That's a fast. What was
1 week.
Why?
1 week.
Why?
Because people are fed up with the out-of-control spending in government and the size of government. Government is completely out of bounds, and people have just had enough. I think it started back with TARP in 2008, and then you piled stimulus right on top of TARP, and people just said enough, enough.
Yeah. Jenny Beth, do you think, and let me throw this at you here a minute, because, when I talk a lot, I refer to the Tea Party from time to time on radio and television, and in a while back I even joined the website and wanted to stay in the know and inform myself of, okay, what's going on, and I consider myself sort of a quasi-Tea Party guy, if you will, because, if you believe in less government and you want more freedoms to the people, then clearly that qualifies,
Right.
and so I'm not ashamed to say that, naturally, that's part of my message, and, people know it out here, but within all of this, my guess is, okay, and I want to educate everybody out here a little bit more about this Tea Party business, because there's a lot of confusion in it. There's a lot of things you don't know that I want Jenny Beth to educate all of us in, and because I'm not an expert in this either, and I'm not professing to be, but I do talk about it as a commentator, and I discuss it, the movement. But I consider it, in my view, this is my view now, that the Republican Party, to me, had really lost its way as far as I'm concerned now. Okay,
right.
And as a conservative, I just felt that the voice was lost within all of this. And I seen what was going on with the previous administration. I had seen what had been going on actually over quite a period of time, okay? And if you follow history and the track record of the Republican Party, I believe they lose their way frequently enough in their competitive nature of wanting and seeking power within the Democrats, which it's all about power today. That's what politicians are after, I believe. And I believe the Republican Party lost their way, and I think, but true conservatives within that party, I don't think really ever lost their way. And to me, in my view, this is the fraction of the party that is fed up, tired of it, wants a better day tomorrow. They're not necessarily now libertarians. They're not necessarily nut jobs from the extreme right. These are real people, real Americans. Now, tell me, is that a true statement, or am I just so full of it that...
It's a true statement that we're the ones who think that the party lost its way. I think both parties lost their way, but the Democrats actually are governing pretty much the way they promised they would govern. They said they're going to spend, they're going to have more government, and they've stuck to that.
Amen.
The Republicans always govern on less government and less spending, and we haven't seen any less spending. It just keeps going up.
It just depends how many trillion they're adding. Is
Exactly.
it 5, 6, 7, or 3 or 4? Still
Right.
trillions, right?
Right, and those zeros add up fast.
Yeah.
And so we are very, very frustrated, and I think a lot of people who are very active in this movement used to consider themselves Republican, and now they just say, I'm American first, and parties come way down the list.
Amen. You know, Jenny, but you see all of this stuff now. You know, over this past year, just a few months ago, we were talking to everybody out here about the waste in the GSA, which I spoke about down to the nitty-gritty detail of what happened there, okay? And, you know, so now, just in the past week, we've talked about the Department of Veterans Affairs, who spent another $5 million on parodies and parties and what have you. Every day and every time we turn around, there's another government agency, and we don't even know how much goes on. We don't know. This is only the stuff that happens to leak through. Why is government waste? Forget the spend in a moment. Let's forget the spend. Okay, all right, so the fat cats in Washington want to spend. We get that. But let's talk about the waste, the pure waste, the ignorance of $900 hammers, passing out printed condoms at the door, parodies, parties, balloons, hoopla. Right. Why the waste? Why are people so sinful?
I think it's because they're not accountable for the money they spend. They're bureaucrats, they're unelected, they don't have to report to anybody but their bosses who are also bureaucrats and unelected. The Senate isn't passing a budget. They haven't passed a budget in over 3 years. And so they're not accountable even to a bottom line. There's no, this is how much you're supposed to spend. They just spend and spend.
Jenny, but why do you think Democrats can accept that? Seriously, now it's not a funny question, but why can they accept the fact that it's okay to do that? Why is it okay to some Americans? Again, I'm not talking about spending here. I'm not talking about, you know, a lot of the entitlement programs even. I haven't even got to that. I'm talking about how can they live with themselves and knowing that there is so much waste and so many of these government agencies that are out of sync. How do they sleep at night? Do you know?
Well, I think that a lot of times they think government can do better than the private sector. And so they're okay with government spending money because they think that the government's going to do better than the private sector. I think that that's wrong. I think that the private sector will do much better than government in almost anything if you allow the private sector to actually work. And that means no crony backroom deals between business and the government. When you start doing that, it changes the playing field so that the businesses and the government have all the benefits, and that's not working. But I think part of it is just they think the government can do better.
Yeah, which just is amazing. I mean, anytime you have bureaucracy in something, I've never known it to work, really. But all right, so now you get into the spending, you get into the deficits. We had our credit rating knocked down from S&P. Fitch is threatening to do that. Every credit agency, by the way, has us with a negative outlook. Every single one. Right. Nobody has a positive outlook anymore. If they haven't downsized it already, they're planning to do so after the election. That's not too good for confidence in the business community, right?
No, it's not good for confidence in the business community. It's not good for confidence with the unemployed people who are seeing these things on the headlines.
And in the world community.
In the world community,
we're being
laughed upon. It makes us weak and vulnerable. And it also, people from outside of the country, I've talked to some people from, not a lot, but some people from other countries, and they say, we're looking at America and saying, that's what we've just gone through. Don't they know any better? But here in America, we just think, it can't happen here. It can't happen here.
See, that's what people keep doing it. I want you to see what's exactly what Jenny Beth just said. With her hands to her ears. That's exactly what I believe is happening. People are doing this, Jenny Beth, and it's not good. And they're like totally ignorant. You know, it's like, it's never going to. This is the United States of America. They take it for granted.
Right.
And it sickens me to see that.
It's good because we love America so much. We believe in America's strength and greatness.
But it's
and
not
that's
good.
And yet we have to look at history and make sure we don't become a victim of history ourselves, and that we learn from history and don't repeat her past. And we've done that. We've done that in the past. We have beaten the odds. Our founding fathers started this country they're just a ragtag army taking on the greatest empire in the world. Right. And then, instead of saying, here's how much we're going to control everything, they said, no, that's not how we're going to do it. We're going to set up a whole new form of government. They broke historic traditions, and I think we can do it again. We just have to have the wherewithal to do it.
Tell me, if you will, let's help clear up for folks so they understand when we talk Tea Party now, okay? So the group that you are involved in is called
Tea Party Patriots.
Tea Party Patriots, right? So tell us some of the other Tea Party movements, if you will, please, and explain the Tea Party Patriots as well, and then we can discuss other missions all similar.
Well, instead of movements, I think it's other groups. I think all the groups share the same or very similar core values. They may be worded differently, but they're still they mean the same thing. And we have different groups. Ours started right after the Tax Day Tea Parties, or right before the Tax Day Tea Parties in 2009. And we saw that there were all these people starting new groups, had never been involved in politics before, and somebody had to be around to support them after Tax Day. So we started Tea Party Patriots specifically for that purpose. And that's what we still do. We meet once a week with local coordinators on a webinar, and we've met every single week since February of 2009, with the exception of about 8 to 10 weeks.
So you use webinars to connect folks.
We
Great.
use webinars
That's
to connect, and then our local coordinators set the direction for Tea Party Patriots.
So how many different chapters are, I don't know if that's the right word.
Yeah, it is. They're voluntarily affiliated groups, and we have over 3,500 of those.
3,500 groups?
Right.
Wow. Wow.
And they choose to affiliate with us. We don't require anything.
This is a movement.
It is.
Yeah. Let me ask you, can the Tea Party, and you've been asked this before, I'm sure of it, can it ever become its own political party?
I suppose there are circumstances where that could happen. Political parties are very bureaucratic. There are a lot of laws and rules regulating them, and it takes a long time to establish a political party.
And many have tried and failed.
Our problems facing America and our economy are upon us right now. We don't have time to go starting another party. We've got to address the problems at hand. So we'll work with the system that exists, and we're going to effect change with it. And we look to the political parties and want them to embrace our values. And if they do, great. And if they don't, we'll keep working to teach them about them and why they're the right thing.
But I think where people get lost with that statement is when we talk about this, and I understand what you're saying, is that it's still called Tea Party.
Yes.
See, and that's when you think it. And I've had to clear this up for a lot of radio around the country, because they even the hosts don't understand. It's like, well, that's a party, right? Well, no, it's not a political party. I call it a movement.
Right.
Of real Americans who want to really see some change.
It's a movement. It's not a political party. It's a tea party, because that's what the founding fathers did in Boston.
Maybe we should call it the Tea Movement or something.
Right, right.
The Tea Movement. Maybe that's the new brand. I don't know, but the Tea Movement Patriots or something. But because there is that misconception, I guess. So tell me this. So within this, there's also a National Tea Party convention. There's
a convention. There's several other different groups, and they all share the similar outlook as we do. The similar core values, and we just have different approaches to it. And one thing we've learned is the different ways to approach the problem. That's what's making us so strong. We're diverse with our solutions.
Which is the largest group of the Tea Party? Do you know?
I know that we have one that meets on a weekly basis with thousands of coordinators from around the country, and I haven't compared stats.
You don't know if that's the biggest or not, then?
As far as I know it is, but I haven't compared stats.
To really look at it, okay. And so there's no plans to unite all this or do any of that?
We are united. When you have thousands of people join together to do this, we are united. And while there are other groups that do things a little bit differently, some endorse, some don't, it doesn't matter. We all want the same thing for our country. And we understand that there's a group of people who want to rebuild and fundamentally transform our country. And so we do what we can to enact the solutions we think are right. And we've got to remember that our focus isn't with each other. It's with these people who want to fundamentally transform America.
That's right. That's right. Jenny Beth, how can people get involved in the Tea Party Patriots?
Go to teapartypatriots.org, and they can sign up, get involved. We'll plug them in with a local group and keep them up to date.
Well, you know, my tagline on our show, we're in our third year here on our channel itself, and my tagline from day one has always been, get involved, get loud.
Exactly.
With great pride.
Exactly.
So that's not too far removed from where you're at, you know?
Exactly.
We're truth seekers, aren't we?
We are. We're truth seekers, and we've seen behind the curtain. We know what it's like, and we know we've got to hold everyone accountable.
Yeah, and I think real Americans are ready for this sort of conversation. I think people sense and know that government is a problem. It's a crisis out there, and there are things that are going on that Americans don't have a clue on that are happening behind the curtain. Back to that. So I think the role of a lot of us is to expose that curtain, sort of like the Wizard of Oz, was it?
Right.
You see,
exactly.
Where is Oz, and where is the
Exactly.
great Oz, and does he exist, man, and what does he look like? And that really is the federal government, isn't it now?
It is.
You know,
It
they come
is.
across as one thing, and they never really are that thing.
No.
There's something else. That's an interesting analogy. Maybe we use that somewhere, but I don't think they'd mind. But, you know, I think there is a lot to say about it, and I think the work you've done. What is tell me, just to recap it, what's the biggest accomplishment the Tea Party Patriots, in your mind, has accomplished from the inception to today?
I think the biggest accomplishment is that the American people are talking about the debt and the economy and how we're going to solve that problem, and we're talking about real substantial issues. We're not being distracted by the things that really aren't important, and we're focused on the real important issues, and that is our biggest accomplishment. And it's about swaying hearts and minds. The more people who understand where we're coming from and that we want the best for our country just like they do, the better off we're all going to be, and the faster we will be in a solution stage instead of a crisis stage.
There was a lot of talk in previous months that the Tea Party was going away, as I started hearing a lot of that as the election was coming through and the primary season and so on and so forth. That was the talking point within Radio Land and so on and so forth. Well, the Tea Party's going away, so on and so forth. They're just not being influential. Obviously, there was a lot of impact in the 2010 election that changed the cycle of a lot of things. And there are a lot of politicians who came on board. And one of the things I seen was the success of the Tea Party is they really did help try to make change within the system. It wasn't just a lot of rhetoric.
Right.
And I think, were the Tea Party Patriots also, so I'm not confused, also influential in that, within the getting some of those politicians into office and so on and so forth, as I understand it?
We focused on our core values, and we did not endorse anyone, but our core values are what got them into office. They ran off of our core values, and it got them elected. And then there are local groups around the country who do choose to endorse and do direct candidate engagement, and they worked on candidates as well.
There was also a lot of conversation about somebody buying Tea Party. Somebody was going to buy the license or the rights to it, a trademark or something. Did anything become of that?
I think it was a domain, teaparty.com, and I don't know if that ever panned out or not.
Yeah, I heard a lot of rumblings of that. So there was a lot of this. I think people were seeing that there was probably a lot of cha-ching in the program.
Right.
Trying to position and buy it, right?
Right, and I suppose that's what happens with free markets, but we just keep focusing on our core values.
Yeah. Well, congratulations for that. What's the biggest thing ahead?
The biggest thing ahead in the next few days, or the next 60 or so days, is the election. And then immediately following the election, we can't turn our back or even take a nap. We have to keep
no matter
these
who's
people,
in office.
No matter who it is, we've got to hold them accountable. Because we've learned when we turn our back, they'll quickly pull money out of our pocket. Yeah,
is that the truth? Yeah. So at the end of the day, again, I think it's just about hearing a voice. I mean, you're a great spokesperson for this,
Thank you.
Really. And you know, and the reason I know is because, you know, in talking to so many people as I do, when I think you're legitimate and you're authentic, you speak from the heart. You speak the truth, and that's really what it's all about. I think that's, to me, and this is something I try to get our politicians to do, Jenny Beth, to be authentic. You don't have to be perfect all the time. Actually, Americans are very forgiving. That's not even the problem, you know.
Right.
They just want truth, and
they want truth.
Being authentic.
Exactly, and that, I think, is part of the reason for our success. We're talking about the real issues, and we're not giving just spin.
Yeah, well, congratulations for all the success. I look forward to having you on again, and look forward to helping in the journey however we can again. Jenny Beth Martin, again, co-founder and national organizer of Tea Party Patriots. The website, Jenny Beth, again?
teapartypatriots.org.
Oh, yeah, I've been on it many times, but teapartypatriots.org. You'll see that on the screen right now. And Jenny Beth, again, you know, this is, again, the movements and the positive things that are going on here. And as you see through the political conventions, whether it happens to be Tampa in the RNC or whether it happens to be Charlotte in the DNC, listen, the music may change, but the problems are the same. And it's what are we going to do about it at the end of the day. And, you know the drill. It's time. I mean, if we want something to happen, we have to make it happen in this country, or we sell it out. As I always say to you, it's time to get involved, get loud, and think on the brain.